Okay, we're up to Chaf Beis Amid Beis. We just did the sugya of Shaul. We saw that Shaul, as a king, we said David did one avera and he didn't lose the malchus. Shaul did two averas and he lost the malchus. We mentioned that Shaul, his averas showed that he didn't have what it took to be the melech. So it is indicative that he couldn't be the king, whereas David's were separate from that aspect. There should be Gemaras around him, Mendy. He's looking for a Gemara. Anyway, so the Gemara now just describes the beginning of Shaul's malchus. We said Shaul was very, very easygoing. Shaul was very easygoing, and he wasn't Michael on his covet, and as a result, it was incorrect what he did. So we're up to 3 lines from the bottom on Chaf Beis Amid Beis. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, if they manena Shaul. Why was Shaul punished? Because Shaul was what he was Michael on his kvodo. Look at the Rashi, fellas. And this will, in a nutshell, will tell you the problem of Shaul. Hi, Mandy, great to see you. At the beginning of his malchus, what happened was the people were embarrassed Shaul, and then he was Michael, and then there was a battle with Nachash Ammoni, and he was victorious, and people said, and he was Michael. V'giloi al atzmai, and he was megala on himself, she'enoi kedai limleich, that he wasn't kedai for him to go ahead and be Michael. That's again the Nakuda. He showed that he didn't have the mitzias of a king. A king's got to be a tough guy. Shaul was just too nice. He was just the nicest. Michael on his code. Nechbal Kalim, he was hiding. He was just easygoing and nice. And that was not the ingredient for being the king. Anyway, so the Gemara continues. Shenamar, it says, B'nai Belial, there were the people, B'nai Belial, people Belial Machlu Shemayim. Amru Maya Shienu, who he was going to save us. Zeh, Vayivzahuhu, and they embarrassed Shaul. They spoke about him negatively. They didn't bring proper gifts to the king. And Shaul was quiet. He went against Yabesh Gilad, and Shaul went and he fought, he wiped them out. It was very successful. This is a very difficult Gemara. Kol Talmud Chacham, any Talmud Chacham, she'eina noikim v'noiter kinachash. Any Talmud Chacham that does not take nekama or netira or hold a grudge like a snake, ain't a Talmud Chacham. It's not a Talmud Chacham. Okay, let's go through the sugya and then we'll speak out a few pratim to understand. Right, various questions. It's us that have nekama, it's us that have netira. So we'll try to give some type of more specific instances of when it is allowed. So how could you say that a Talmud Chacham how can you tell me a Talmud Chacham can take nekama or take netira? I say v'ksiv so they sikam sitar, and that says v'hafli yachad kamaycha. Hahu b'mamen hu dechsiv. That's regarding mammon. Now there's this din of nekama and this din of netira. That's my money, and this is a very, very famous Gemara. We know it from the Chumash. Dechsiv, the Tanya, ezehi nekima. What is considered revenge? Ve'ezehi netira. What's holding a grudge? Is nekima. Amar la, your friend says to you, Hashileni maglacha, lend me your sickle. Right, that was the sign of the old Soviet Union, the sickle, right? Lend me a sickle. Amalai, he says, no, I'm not going to. Lamacha, the next day, Amalai, who? Hashileni kardumach, go ahead and lend me your axe, the other person. Amalai says, no, any meshalcha, kederach shalai hashalatani. Just like you don't lend me your sickle, I'm going to lend me your axe. No, that is the kama, but that's in Dinei Mamadus, right? It's regarding objects. Zui nekima. Ve'ezuhi netira, what's netira? Amalei hashileni kardumach, lend me your axe. Again, after the day before you asked them for the sickle. Amalei, loy. Lamach amalei hashileni chalukcha, lend me your shirt. Amalei, hey, here it is. Any kamaischa, I'm not like you, shloi shaltani, right? That you don't go ahead and right. So you show that you have netira. Now, what's netira? Look at the second Rashi on the page. What's netira? His shaltani is doing netira. Shahadava shama beliboy. I guess you'd say this is holding a grudge. In other words, the shdavar is shomer, it's watched. Beliboy means in his mind. It's in his mind what this guy did. He goes, no, I'm not like you. Look, I'm better than you. That's classic netira, and this is only dinei mamonis. So Fred the Gemara kasha, all right? And for the Gemara, it's mashma that when it comes to DNA mominus, there's a din of leisikam leisitor. However, when it comes to it being embarrassed, like Shol was embarrassed, that Shol was bimavaza, when it was the personage himself, then it seems to be permitted to hold the grudge and to take the kama. That's Pashtus what the Gemara is saying, right? Because it says we only say in dinei mominus leisikam leisitor. Mashma mitzayu the gufo, when he's mitzayu in the guf, then in fact, what you're able to go ahead, and have a little grudge action. Okay, so now says the Gemara, if it's Saru de Gufa loy, and Saru de Gufa, you're able to have revenge, Vatanya, Hane'elovim, those that are embarrassed, Ve'ino Olvim, and they don't embarrass back. Shoymim Cher Pasam, they hear hear people being Mavaza. Ve'ena Meshivim, they don't answer, they're quiet. Oisin me'ava, Lusmechem b'Yisurim, they serve Hashem ma'ava, and they have to be Yisurim. Aleim akasavaymer, regarding these people, the Torah says, Ve'oihavov kitseis Hashemesh b'gvurasoi, and those who love him, those who love Hashem, as powerful as the sun in its gevura. So l'chayra, you see that a person should not hold a grudge, and they love him. If a person embarrasses you, you shouldn't go back. See, the Mefarshim speak out. The sun was the classic. Says the Munta HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how can two kings serve, right? Because the passage begins, Shnei Moris HaGedolim, mashma they were equal. Then Mar HaGadol, Mar HaKatan. So Rashi tells you right away, quoting the Gemara, I think it's in Chulin, that describes what? That the sun was made small, the moon was made small because of complaint. The sun, when he hears this, is totally quiet. The sun doesn't say anything. So Hanelov Bein Olvim, that's why it's like the Shemesh, the Tzushtel is to the Shemesh, because the Shemesh personifies exactly that. Exactly that you go ahead and you're embarrassed and you don't say anything back. Okay? So the bottom line is that you see that you're supposed to let go, like the sun. You're supposed to let go. So what do you tell me? It's side the goof for the holding of grudges, okay? And for the Gemara, the nakele belibe, Rashi, you don't have to do anything. You're quiet. But if somebody wants to go ahead and take retribution, then it's okay. If somebody stands up on your behalf, then it's okay. Sorry, the goof fight. Fred the Gemara Vamarava Kala Mavral Ami Doisav Mavin Loya Kol Pshav. Anyone who goes against his base midos, guys, because Baruch Hu is Mavral all his Averis, all his Psham is like it's not there. Because Baruch Hu what is Mavral Ami Doisav? So Gemara says Matthias lay Matthias. That's speaking with what? With the person who wronged you was Matthias you. Person who's doing Matthias. Now, no one here sitting here thinks that, wow, this is great. This is great news. I always thought that I can't bear a grudge. I always thought I can't. I gotta hit the gamma, right? It's only dinei mominus, but the guy wrongs me. Every guy sits in your shul, guy does something, guy irks you. Oh, great, you can hold a grudge, right? Right. So obviously it's not so partial, right? So let's get a little. It says that the Ritva says something very interesting. Says the Ritva that the kasha is how could say tsar magufay ol v'nel lovim. So and this and where it says kol marval midoisav. He says that's dafka bitzaira, that's to you. The isser of the permission for going ahead and a Talmud Chacham of leisikam leisitor is b'mili d'shmaya when it comes to matters of shemayim. In other words, if the person went ahead and he took away not from your cover, he took away what you represent. The Talmud Chacham represents the Torah and the Rabbeinu Shalom. That you can't be mavatal on. That is an issa or what that you should be like sukkam, but you should be taking the covenant in the tira. But stam for your own covet, then there's an issa of. Then there's the halacha of kol ha'mavral midosav, and it's very very geschmack. There's a chidah. Listen to this beautiful chidah. The chidah is in Gemara in Tainus. The Gemara in Tainus says in Daf Ches. All the animals in the world get together and they ask the Nachash, what hana do you have? The Ari, he gets up in the morning, he's doiris, he claws it, eats it. The Zav goes ahead, rips it apart. What do? You bite it and then you can't even eat it. You got to swallow it whole. What hana do you have? So that's the still over here. When you go ahead and compare that, it's good to know we're on the safe auspices of the Shaiman Patrol. Anyway, that's what worries me. So it has to be anyone who's noiku kenachash, that you don't have any hana, meaning it's not your own personal thing. Really, the Shema is not my hana. It's right. It's like Kadosh Baruch Hu's. And be Kadosh Baruch Hu's covered by going ahead and not being moichel, by holding the grudge. That's what I'm doing. That's similar to the nachash, where the nachash hadish kan zich, he doesn't have anything from it, right? It's a beautiful way to put the whole Gemara together, right? So in other words,
Shaul didn't stand up for Malchus.
Shaul didn't stand up for the Malchus, right? Melech Shema, there's a Shaila, Melech Shema Kfadai, and Kfadai Michael. We have a Gemara Kedushin. So I'm saying that inyan comes together. That be'emes that it's never very good to hold a grudge. The Chafetz Chaim in his Hakdama, the Sefer Chafetz Chaim, so again writes, you can imagine Chafetz Chaim will never give you a head for bearing a grudge. But in terms of bearing a grudge, I think the heaviest thing a person can go ahead and carry is the grudge. I think Rabbi Abraham Twersky said a Gavaldik line. He said it's allowing someone to live in your most expensive real estate without paying rent. It's a great line. Listen to what he said. You're allowing a person to live in your most expensive real estate without paying rent. And I guess the more a person lets go of things, the more a person doesn't bear a grudge. It's a big people. That's what big people do. And people who bear grudges, unfortunately, their lives are compromised as a result. So again, whatever het the Gemara over here, you have to read between the lines. It's a loy pashut. It's a loy pashut based upon the Rishonim. It's not pashut at all. Okay, very geschmack. Okay, now we said in the Beis Hamikdash, what do you do? What do you put out? You put out one or two. Now my son Moshe yesterday, he said when the two people are, when they race up, and if they're equal, then they go ahead and they put their fingers out. And he asked me who is in the lottery, and I, with all my pomp, said only two people. Of course, I was arguing with Rashi because I'm an Amoritz and I didn't know Rashi. I skipped over Rashi. Not only did I skip over Rashi, I skipped over Rashi that I had underlined with a whole Gevurah Sari on it. It's a mamish over here. So if you look at Rashi on the Amid Aleph, right? If you look at Rashi on the Amid Aleph, parallel to the Gemara, 3 lines from the top, Vim Hoyu Shneim Shavim. So if you take a look over there, it says Vim Hoyu Shneim Shavim Bichnisasan. If two of them are equal, going up Mizbeach, Ein Ech Mehem Zoichel Litroim. Aval Me'ata now, Kulam, all of them, meaning the whole kit and caboodle came there, Boyin Lahatel Gairol, they came to go ahead and have a Gairol. Umaha Gairol, what's the Gairol? Hamamun ala Paisus Oima Lekulam. So you see Kulam, it's all the Kanim that are there. So the Gevurah Sari explains beautifully. When we picture this, we picture the following. It's early in the morning, right? 2 Kahanim showed up, and they ran up, and they were tied. So what do? 2 guys, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, right? Rock, paper, scissors. What are you going to do, right? That's not what happened. There was a bunch of Kahanim there, and they all ran. And only 2 got to the top at the same time. So what do? That's a way of being Mavarer, yes? Whoever wins the race. Failing to win the race, you go back to the next best thing, which at the time was a lottery. And who's in the lottery? Everybody. In other words, it's not only these 2. If they don't win, it doesn't make them any better than the guys who didn't get that far. That was before the lottery. That was a way of ascertaining who does Trumas Hadeshen, who would win the race. It's not pshat, then it's a tie, and one's getting the gold medal, the silver medal, and all the other guys who didn't make it. No, once that failed, it went into the lottery, and everyone was part of the lottery. So I thank Maish for that, for giving me a little chance to at least look at my Gemara, which I had all this written down from who knows how many years ago. Okay, anyway, so now back by Yosef Chav Gimel. Mahin Motzian Achas Shtayim. Hash the Shtayim Motzian Achas Mivoy. You're telling me they can put out 2 fingers. One, you need to tell me? Well, that's obvious. You can put out 2 fingers, you can put out 1 finger. Some Rav Chisda, like Kasha, Kam Bebari, Kam Bechayla. A Bari is able to put out 1 finger. Sometimes a Chayla, in order to put out the 1 finger, needs the support of the other one. So the 2 is for the person whose mind is unhealthy. This is Rav Chisda. So, like Kasha, Kam Bebari, Kam Vatanya, this is a proof. Achas Moitziyin, you put out 1 finger. Shtayim ein moitzian, but you don't put out 2. When is that speaking? That puts out one and not two. That's bibari. That's a healthy person. But a person who's ill, afilu shtayim, and he can go ahead and put out what? He can even put out two. The hayichidim.
Sick person would be called about mum.
It says, yeah.
You can't do it. It's about mum.
Why is he about mum?
Because you can't put out one finger. It's about mum. You can't do it.
What?
Can't do it.
Again, about mum, there's certain mumim that are mumim. It doesn't say anything about that a person can't put out one finger.
How do you do true suggestion if you can't figure out?
I guess he could. I guess he could do it again.
Can't pick up two fingers.
Again, maybe he could with his whole hand. He could pick it up. Again, Shumas Hadeshin wasn't very heavy. It wasn't. Shumas Hadeshin wasn't very heavy.
Rabbi, this is how you could say maybe that you concluded all the kahanim.
You see what they did.
No, it didn't include all the kahanim because if he was sick,
I can't talk to people who I don't see. Okay, you're just a black box with a hand up. Thank you.
sorry.
You give me a hand, right?
Yeah.
Good.
So if he couldn't make it to the top because he couldn't put out both fingers, then it's a riot that they would include everybody. Because even the kahanim that weren't well were involved. Saying I'm both doing your pshat because of the Gemara.
Okay, I agree. Again, the fact that a person, one finger, it's easier to put out two fingers. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a balmum. I'll give you an example. You see that? I can't put my finger next to this finger, right? You see? I can't. The fingers are separate like that. I'd like you hear that? You see that? Am I sick? I hope not. Shut up. Manny, what are you making balmum for? What are you making balmum for? Look at the Torah. Last week's parsha tells you what balmum was. A guy whose eyes are apart. The guy, you have the hair connected together. The guy's what balmum. One eye is up here, one eye is up here. One is like that. A guy who's not a finger is not a balmum. Stop. Okay, stop it. Anyway, we're a mask. You're the Lone Ranger. Now, says the Gemara. So. The hayichidim moitzin shtayim, right? Even if what they're able to, they might see in these hayichidim, they can go ahead and they can put out two. They moinim lahem elachas, but even though they put out two, you're only going to count one. They moinim loy ela achas for Tanya. For the Marakashi, you only count them as one. But Tanya, a might see in loy shlish, you don't put out the middle finger. The loy gadol and not the thumb. If they haramoyim because you could cheat. Shlish. If you find a kohen trying to cheat, right? He puts out the middle finger, moinin loy, right? Shlish moinin loy, gaidol a moinin loy. The shlish you will count as one, the gaidol you won't count because that really appears if why he's trying to go ahead. But mashma that you could put out two fingers, mashma that you could put out two fingers. If the guy puts out as a gaidol, the mamuna is going to whip him. He's going to whip him for trying to cheat. Bottom line is that you count them even though you put out two fingers. You're going to count it only as one. You're not going to count it as two. The Havamina was you're counting this two, no, you count it as one. My pekia, what's the lashon of pekia? I'm a Rav Madra. My Madra, I'm a Rav Papa. Mitarka ditaya the pasuk resha. It's the whip of an Arab that's split at the top. So this pekia, if the guy would try to cheat, they pay the price. I'm Rabbi Maresh initially Havamina. I thought Haditnan. The Mishnah in Shkolim, Ben Baboy Memuna ala Pekia. Remember the Mishnah there? It was counting these exemplary individuals. Gavini was on the cruz, and Beis Artinus was on the Tyrus, and Beis Garman was in Lachem Aponim, and it was counting the people, spectacular people. So one of the people was Ben Baboy, and he was Memuna ala Pekia. And the Yishalmi, what we said? The Yishalmi was that he would go ahead and adjust the wicks. In other words, they always put in the same amount of oil, but depending the way it burnt depending upon the thickness of the wick. So he was in charge of the pekia was wicks. So Abaye said initially, based upon the Mishnah in Shkolim, he thought pekia meant wicks. Amina pesilta kidinan mavloi michlesei kahanim. The ripped code fancy the kahanim, umehimneihem, and their shirts. Mehem hoyim mafki, and they would make wicks. Umehem hoyim madlikin, and them they would light. However, keeping the shamana lehu detanya v'loyoyda l'shalokim in amuna v'pekia. I mean, my pekia is nagda. It's something that you whip with. So again, it seems to be machlokes probably in Yerushalmi what exactly pekia is, whether it's a wick or it's what it is a whip. Okay, Maisa, there was a Maisa Shayishneim Shavim Baratzin Bailam Kevesh. There was Maisa where two people were equal. They were running up the Kevesh, and one pushed the other and knocked them off. We're gonna have a more violent Maisa right now. Tanabaran. Maisa Mishnei Kahanim. There's an incident with two Kahanim. Shayishneim Shavim. They both were equal. The Ratzin, the Oilim, the Kevesh. Kadam Echad Mehem. One of them went ahead and beat the other one. The Teichar Ba'amis Shel Chaveroi, Natal Sakin. One took a knife, V'takal Beliboy, and he put it in the other person's heart. Talk about a sore loser, right? So he mamish killed the guy. What? The same place where the bomb is a knife. The finger. Remember, it's a kashas and mices. Then you get a knife. He had a knife. Yeah. He had a knife. He had a switchblade. He had a knife. I mean, he had a knife. Right? What they're running up the mizbeach. What are they doing? Well, what's wrong with having? He was a great tzaddik, the guy. He killed the guy, and you're worrying that he had a knife. Anyway, Amar Rav Tzaddik al Mailas Ulam. Rav Tzaddik stood on the steps of the Ulam. Those 12 steps. What? I think the 15. I might be. It might actually possible. Is Sharniknar is the 15. Sharnik the possible is it possible 12 by the Ulam? I mean, it might be. I'm not sure. You could be right. V'amar achenu beis Yisrael shimu. Listen up. Harihu oimer ki yimatzei chalal be'adama. This is the parsha of Egla Rufa. If you find a corpse on the ground, the yetzes the keinecha b'sheftecha, and the zekanim and the shoftim, they'll go out to the place and they'll go through the whole process. Anu al mila hevi egla rufa. Who's going to bring the egla rufa over here? Now, as we're going to see, this is a rhetorical question because there's no shaykhus to egla rufa because we know who the murderer is. Again, there's no shaykhus. This is a rhetorical question. Ala ir, is it upon the city of Yerushalayim to bring the egla rufa, or ala zarai, so upon the kahanim? So go, Kalaam, B'Bchia, they all raised their voices and they began to cry. Boav Shel Tinoik came the father of this Tinoik, obviously wasn't a Tinoik can't do the Avodah. And he found him, he was still in his death throes, he was still shaking. Omar, listen to what he was worried about. Haru Kaparaskam, he's your Kesi Kapara, but I am Beni Mefarfer, he is what? He's still alive. V'Leinit Masakin, and right, it was still stuck in him. Now, if he would have died, the knife would become tamei. So if he's still alive, you pull it out. You have another tar knife to give to another client to use the second time. Now, l'nadecha shekosha alayim tyrus kalim yois mishvichas damin. You hear what I was thinking about? His son is still dying, and he's thinking about what? Whether the knife is going to become tamei or not. It's a pel. Guy, it's peladic. This is what? 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 Oh, it's outside. It's in the Azar. There's no roof. Like, no roof, right? You think you hide behind the mist and not helping them. You notice that?
I know, that's what.
Yeah. Anyway. Correct. You're 1,000% correct. This is a rhetorical question. I told you. It's still rhetorical. Whatever kashi you have, it's a rhetorical. In other words, the question really was to get the people motivated to look how cheap shvichas damin has become. That's really all it is. Halachically, it's incorrect. But you're totally correct. There is no egla roof in Yerushalayim. If you look at the bottom places, you'll have a lot of lumdus. See Yerushalayim made a roof. You see that places? Yeah. You'll see it on your own. The gam damnaki shafach Menashe harbe ma'od, and Menashe he went ahead and he drew much blood out of Shamalias Yerushalayim pelepeh. Now, high ma'isa kodim. Which ma'isa took place first? The ma'isa of being pushed off and breaking the leg, or the ma'isa of murder? If you're going to tell me the ma'isa of murder took place first, hashta ashvichas damim leitakinu paisa anishbru raglu takinu. In other words, the reason they would make the lottery is because of severe circumstances. So if you're telling me the murder transpired before what? Before the broken leg, it makes no sense. That they didn't make a pious for, and broken leg they did. Ella, so it must be the one. Ella nishbaragel kadim. The kivin the kina paisa arba amas ma'avidatayu. So you have a problem. If the broken leg took place first, and they set the lottery after the broken leg, where would you have two guys racing that the other guy can go ahead and stick a knife into the other guy? You got a problem, guys, both ways. If the shvichas damim took place first, why in the world did they make the lottery then? And if the shvichas damim took place afterwards, how could you have the mitzias of that case? After all, there was no race anymore because the pious is decided after the broken leg, which took place before. Eloim the shvichas damim kadim. The shvichas damim came first. I watched Yikasha. Why don't they make a lottery? They figured that this is really like, come on, this guy, there's something really weird with this guy, right? He's going to kill a guy. It's not a very common thing. Or you'd think that, I know I heard of soul loses, but it's ridiculous, right? Kivin the chaze afilim and mela asi b'dei sakana. Since they saw afilim and mela without kivon, when they were running up, one person by accident pushed the other and he fell off. To kina rebban and pasa. So they made the paisa as a result. So really the murder took place first, right? And therefore they didn't make a pious lottery because they felt it was an anomaly. It wasn't something that's going to happen. Now they saw a second mice that happened, that somebody fell off as a result. Then they instituted the lottery.
Why
Why did they gain with the lottery?
Yeah,
No.
that everyone wanted to do it. Was the money, like we said before, they were
But
why did they want?
well, but we said actually when they wanted to do it because it's again it's the haschala of an avoida. It's no matter without its chashivas, it's still a part. It's a part of the Torah. The Torah describes Trumas Adeshin. So I wouldn't want to do it.
Were they doing it for the money or
No money. There's no money. No money. No money here. No, you're not. No money. No.
No, I'm saying that usually people beat each other up. It's money or something.
No, sometimes it's you want to go ahead and do the avodah. Sometimes obviously there's something wrong with his spiritual DNA. And you're right. But no, it wasn't money. It was he was a sole loser. You want to win. People are very competitive. People are very. You find people very. I want to tell you, if you would have seen me play basketball, no one would come to the share. Trust me. I'm telling you, I was very sayach. I should really shut this off. I was like, David, stop laughing. You are much better than David Sass. David Sass also. Sometimes you see me this on the court. Steve used to shoot with no one underneath, right? But you know what I mean, right? Anyway, Amar Reb Tzaddik al Maila Seulam. So now let's go back over the Maiso. So, because again, as Yankel was bothered by, there's no way in the world that this has a din of Egla Rufa for various reasons, as the Gemara will explore. Amar Reb Tzaddik al Maila Seulam. Amar Achenu Beis Yisrael Shimu Hariyoyim Ki Yimatzei Chalul Ba'adam. When you find what a dead body between two cities, on an Almila Hevi Alair on the city of Yerushalayim Oyal Azarais. Fred Gemara Yerushalayim Bas Asuya Egla Rufi. Is Yerushalayim a city that can bring an Egla Rufa? Vatanya. Asari Devarim Neru Yerushalayim. 10 things we said about Yerushalayim. Zuachas Mehem, and this is one of them on the base. Eina Mevia Egla Rufa. You do not bring what an Egla Rufa. V'oid. In addition, when do you bring an Egla Rufa? Is Loinada Mihi Kahu, where you don't know who the killer was, right? Loinada Mihi Kahu Ksiv. It says you don't know who hit him. Over here, you know exactly who killed him. So it doesn't mean Egla Rufa for two reasons. The whole reason he did it was the whole reason that Rav Tzaddik, who lived at the end of the Bayis Sheni, who lived at the end of the Bayis Sheni, right? He went ahead and he did it for Rav Suchia. Now the chavetz, you have to, guys. We said earlier in Masechta Daf Ches, we had the sugya. The first base of Mikdash destroyed because of Gilei Roya Shvichas Damim and Avodah Zarah. The second base of Mikdash was destroyed because of Sinas Chinam. This is the second base of Mikdash. If Tzaddik lived in the second base of Mikdash, but Tzaddik is the Tana in the Maisa of Kamsa bar Kamsa that Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai asked for a rifle to go ahead because of Tzaddik fasted 40 years. Remember, they increased his intestinal tract to be able to go ahead. Because again, so you see in the second bias, they were influenced strongly by what? By the strongly by the first bias that there was murder there as well. Or else, what? Because over here you see murder was not so. And then he's busy worrying about the tire of the knife, as we're going to see in a second. So obviously, murder had been was not considered such a avla. What? 40 years before. 40 years before the Bezdin stopped eating the fashas. Says the Gemara. And he found that he was still in his death throes. He was shuddering. Omar, harihu kaparaschem v'adayim v'nikayim. Now, and what? Let's take the knife out. Right? Yes, Maish.
On what you just said, that if murder wasn't such a big deal, then why wouldn't they stop the races after the murder?
I mean, I don't think it's a good thing, but I think we.
No, it wasn't so uncommon then.
No,
it could easily happen again. I'm saying.
It could happen again. However, that would explain that why you would give it teretz why I didn't stop it the first time around, right? In other words, Gemara says that the chayr from the Gemara's kasha. Okay, so I think when he says it wasn't uncommon, means that the next part that there were things that let's see the next part. It might answer your question. So clearly you see that when it took precedence to go ahead and take the kli out, so it wasn't Tomei Tumas Mace of Tumas Maga, it took precedence. So I think that's what it means when murder was not as severe as should be, that there was something that took precedence over there. I think that's the B'shat Moshe. There's something that took precedence. Not that murder wasn't so severe, but there were things that on the surface you wouldn't think that are so severe. You would think more severe, as the Gemara is going to state in a second, and not. Now, Iboilu, here's the Shaila. Shvichas domim hu dizol. It's a pshat that murder was cheap by them. Aval Tyrus Kalim kidikaim mekaima. But Tyrus Kalim is what stays in place. Like Dilma Shvichas domim kidikaim mekaima. Shvichas domim stayed in its place. It didn't become cheap. Aval Tyrus Kalim he the chamira. But Tyrus Kalim what is mochama. Now Koshma. Now I'll answer in a second. My nafkamina. My nafkamina. Bottom line is like there's always nafkamina in halacha, right? What's the nafkamina over here? Whether one stays in place and what doesn't stay in place. What's the nafkamina? So I saw written down from the Kinas Seifrim in Shalos and Shuvas Simin Nun Ches. He said the following. He said, a person who is choshid on something that's chomer, the person, you go ahead and you make something more chomer. Then if you're choshid on the chomer, certainly you'll be choshid on the kal. So for example, if let's say murder was stayed in its place, and they made Tyrus Kalim more important than what? Than murder. They put Tyrus Kalim over murder, right? And now a person is choshid not be makbid on Tyrus Kalim, so that then there are things that are less than that we have bichayish for. So for example, murder is murder, but this guy, the whole Veld puts Tyrus Kalim over here. And this guy is choshid for being over on not keeping his Kalim tahar. So anything less than that will also be chayish for. So for example, we won't trust him in your kashrus, because if he's not keeping the chametdika thing, he's not going to keep the kaldika thing. Masha Enkain, if it's murder that became cheaper and became cheap and that stayed in its place, then would not be going to apply. That'll be a very nice alumdish nafkamina. Okay, alumdish nafkamina. Now, what does the Gemara say? Says the Gemara, Toshma, let's be pushed the shaila mid the konosav la talmuda. The gam dam naki shafach menashe. It brings the pasuk that Menashe shmamino shvichas damim hu dizol. The shvichas damim that became cheap because murder was commonplace. The Tyrus Kalim kidikaima kaima and Tyrus Kalim mat as it was. What? Yeah, no, the same. Yeah, but I'm saying that if you look at the raya they bring, that they bring, right? Mm-hmm. They bring a raya from Menashe that if they're bringing that as a raya, it must be a raya on shvichas on shvichas damim, because that's the raya they bring. I think this is the speech that he gave. The Chenu Oimer could be part of his speech. I'm not sure. right? It could be that because it is fair what Dak is saying. Menashe lives in the first bias, guys, not the second bias. Menashe was in the first bias, not the second bias. There's a groh here, an aleph. It was Rensburg. Nir be'enai ayin maharsha b'chedushay agadais. Okay, let's finish and then I'll take a look. Okay. Says the Gemara. It says uposhat v'lovish begadim acherim v'choitzi es hadeshen. Now the Gemara now the pasuk, there's a chumash here. Right behind. Okay, great. There's two parshias of that has to do with the ashes. One is Trumas Hadeshen, and one is Chaitzas Hadeshen. And don't mix up the two. And I'll read the psukim that down on Argeya. It's in Parshas Tzav, Pasuk Perek Vav. So it says, Upasha. It says the kohen, V'lovash hakohen midai bad. The kohen will wear clothing that fit, a shirt that fits. U'michnasei bad yilbash al b'saroi, and pants of linen he'll wear on his flesh. The herim es hadeshen, and he will lift up the deshen. Asher toichel ha'esh es ha'oil al mizbeach. V'sama eitz al mizbeach, and he'll put that next to mizbeach. That's trumas hadeshen. You go up, you take a little spoon, you go down on the southeast corner, you put it down. We'll do more tomorrow, guys. Good. That's called trumas hadeshen, and that's what we've been discussing until now. That was Trumas HaGever, and on Yom Kippur was Chatzos, and by the Regalim is Hashmur Rishayna. That's Trumas HaDeshen. Next pasuk, pasuk Dalet, Perek Vav pasuk Dalet. Upashet es begadav, he'll take off this clothing. V'lovish begadim acherim, and he'll wear other clothing. V'hoitzi es hadeshen, and he'll take the deshen el michutz lamachne, outside the machna el makom tahor, to a place that's tahor. So this is the mitzvah of Chaitzas Hadeshen. Trumas Hadeshen is taking the deshen from the marach of the pyre and putting it next to the mizbeach. If the kabbanis they had in the middle, if you ever see any pictures of the mizbeach, they have what's called a tapuach in the middle. It's called like a pile. From time to time, they would take that pile. Say it took 300 kahanim to take it out, that guzma, right? And they would take that out. That's called Chaitzas Hadeshen. So right now the pasuk is describing removal of that pile to the makom. It's called makom shefech hadeshen. That on Open Har Zason, there was a place called makom shefech hadeshen where they spill the ashes from the mizbeach. Good, guys, you good? So two separate ideas and two pasukim. First pasuk trumas hadeshen. Second pasuk chaitzas hadeshen. So now, what is this pasuk describing over here? Upashet v'lovish begadim acherim. This is haramas hadeshen. This is not trumas hadeshen. This is chaitzas hadeshen. V'hoitzi es hadeshen. Now, Shemeni Kederach Yom Kippurim. Now you're changing your clothing, right? The Kohen Gadol changed the Yom Kippur many times. Anytime that avoided Yom Kippur, he wore only white. When it was avoided, that was not Yom Kippur. Then he wore a big day zahav, the Shemina Begadim. So Yom Kippur, shepoishet big day kodesh v'lavish big day chayil. So just like the Kohen Yom Kippur goes from one to the other, I would say the Kohen over here, you know what he does? Haitzah Begadim acherim. He wears his Levi's. You know, I'd say he doesn't wear big day chayil. He's not wearing big day kodesh. When he did Trumas Hadeshen, then he wore Big Day Kodesh. And just as the Kohen Gadol switches, he also switches. What does he switch to? Big Day Chayil, not Big Day Kodesh. Tamid Loimar, Upasheres Begadav, V'lovash Begadim Acherim. It says he takes off his begadim, his garments, and he wears other garments. What is now we have a hekesh. They write together, we make a hekesh, we make a comparison. Begadim shaloivish, we make a comparison by the begadim that he wore, the begadim that he's wearing, the begadim shepoishet, the begadim that he took off. Malahalan, the begadim that he took off. Big Day Kodesh. So when he did the Trumas Hadeshen, Afkan, so too when he does Chaitzas Hadeshen, when he takes it out, over there, it's also Big Day Kodesh. It's also Big Day Kodesh. So that the Hekesh tells us that don't think that what? Now, if you look, what does he say? Which clothing is he wearing? It's mashmi, he's only wearing two things. Upasheres begadov. How much clothing is he taking off, guys? How many? 4. He's taking off 4, right? He's taking off the shirt, he's taking off the pants, he's taking off the hat, he's taking off the avnei. Good, he's taking off 4. Upasheres begadov v'lovish begadim acherim. V'hoitzi esedeshem l'chutz lamachne el makam tahar. Now, so it just says he's wearing begadim acherim. We don't know what he's wearing. Okay, but the pasuk before it said Sorry, Mashmi is only wearing 2. Okay, so let's see what we do with that. Says the Gemara. We have a hekesh. So now with the hekesh teaches us that the hitzas hadeshen also is with big day kodesh. What does acherim mean? Others. In other words, if you tell me others means big day chayil, that's a big chance, right? You're going from big day kodesh to big day chayil. However, if you're telling me means you're wearing still big kodesh, why is it other? And if they're less, they're less. They're not as quality. It's less in quality. It's a bit worn. It's less in quality, but it is big day kodesh. In other words, the Kohanim there was Pinchas Hamalbush. They had a tailor, place where they stored their clothing, and each guy had his own. You know what? You could get your tailor-made clothing.
It's probably dirty. There's a lot of ash.
So that's no. I think the Haitzia is right. So that's why Pchusim, because again, he's going to carry out the ish Pchusim here.
The other ones aren't allowed to get dirty.
Again, you can't, if they get dirty, you can't use them. But Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Acherim for Haitzi. The Acherim is not going on the clothing, fellas. The Acherim is going on the Kohen. Acherim for Haitzi. So here's the way Rabbi Eliezer reads the pasuk. He reads it like this: Upashles begadim v'lovish begadim. Stop. Acherim v'Haitzi as a deshem, and other kahanim take out the deshem. And these are Mendy's favorite kahanim. Limin al kahanim balei mumim, the kahanim who are balei mum, right? Sheksherim l'hoitzi adeshen. They're permitted to take out the deshen. So they're able to go ahead and haste this. The Gemara is going to say that it's not an avoida. Since it's not an avoida, then so we have machloikis. How do you view acherim? Do you view it's going bigodim acherim? It's going on the clothing, or do you say no? It's going on the personage. Kahanim acherim, how are they acherim? They're bali mumim and they can't do the avodah. So that's Rabbi Eliezer. So Tanakama, it's going on the clothing. Rabbi Eliezer oim acherim letzi. Liman al kahanim bali mumim shekshem letzi adeshen. Amamar meaning going back over the brisa. Acherim pchusim mehem. Acherim means you wear clothing that is what? That is cheaper than the ones that you did the avodah with, like the Chumas Adeshen. Kedetanid Rabbi Yishmael, like we went in Yeshiva Rabbi Yishmael, the Tanid Rabbi Yishmael, begodim shebishel behem kedera l'rabbi. A begodim that you cooked kedera l'rabbi, lo yimzik ben kais l'rabbi. You shouldn't go ahead and pour a kais for the rav. In other words, you always wear the better clothing to serve the master. Amar Reish Lakish, kamachloikis ba'itza, kach machloikis ba'arama. Says Reish Lakish, the same machloikis they have by itza is machloikis they have by arama. Rabbi Yochanan, no. Machloikis ba'itza, aval ba'arama, divrei akol avoidehi. In other words, according to Reish Lakish, a Baal Mum could do Chumas Adeshen. Again, what's the machloikis, guys? Let's go. Light the Tanakama. There's no way a Baal Mum could do it. The Baal Mum can't do Haitzah. It's going on the clothing. The Baal Mum can't do it. Let him talk like Yankel said. Let him stay in the woodshed and take out the bugs, the worms from the wood. But he can't go ahead and do Trumas, can't do Haitzah Adeshen, and certainly can't do Trumas Adeshen. There's more of a svar to say Trumas Adeshen is avoid the guys than Haitzah Adeshen. Trumas Adeshen, there was a pious for. There was no pious for Haitzah Adeshen, right? So now, the light says Reish Lakish, Rabbi Eliezer says, no, Acherim, it's not an avoida. Let them go ahead, what, and take it out, the Bali Mum. That same achloikis by Tzas Hadeshen is the same achloikis by Trumas Hadeshen. So look, Rabbi Eliezer, Grace Chiddush, Bali Mum were able to do Trumas Hadeshen. Like Bali Mum were able to do Trumas Hadeshen. Amar Reish Lakish, machloikis by Tzah, ka machloikis by Rama. Rabbi Yochanan, no. Machloikis by Tzah, machloikis in Tanakam is only regarding the export of the ashes outside. Avol beharama, the mitzvah of Trumas Hadeshen, divrei akol, everyone holds, even Rabbi Eliezer holds, avoidahi, that it's an avoida, and therefore what a Baal Mum would not be able to do it. My time the Reish Lakish. What's the reason Reish Lakish says that what that Trumas Hadeshen would be what acceptable by what by a Amalacha Isak avoidahi. If you're going to tell me that Trumas Hadeshen is an avoida, let's go to the pasuk again. Go to the pasuk. For lavish hakayin midoy bad. What's he wearing? A shirt of linen. Umichnesei bad, and pants of linen. Yilbash abasari. How many clothing is he wearing? Two. So if Trumas Hadeshin is an avoida, how much would he have to wear? 4. So when he wears only 2, you see a raya that what? It's not an avoida. If it's not an avoida, then the Balmum also can do it. Geschmack, right? Geschmack. He takes the pasuk literally. It's only 2. Once you're wearing 2, it's mechusa begadim if it was an avoida. Mechusa begadim is also, guys. And no avoida is kosher mechusa begadim. It's a Mishnah in Zvakim. So over here, you're telling me that what? If he's only wearing 2 begadim, obviously it's not an avoida. If it's not an avoida, then therefore what? The Balmum should be able to go ahead and perform Trumas Hadeshin. So says Reish Lakish, that's the same achloikus by Trumas Hadeshin. Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yochanan, right? Goli Rachmana b'ksainis u'mechlesayim. It only brought in those 2. However, who had din limitznefes va'avnei? Who had din limitznefes? In other words, he's wearing 4. So once he's wearing 4, of course the Balmum can't do Trumas Hadeshin. If it's 4, why did they only say 2? Right? So Umayshna Hani, why do you mention these 2? For the chidushim of the 2. What are the chidushim of the 2? Midoi bad. What does that mean? Midoi kimidasai. It has to be well fitting. It can't be a loose fitting shirt. Like it could be untucked. I don't know, but it may be untucked. But it's got to be a well fit shirt. It can't be a baggy shirt. It's got to fit well. Michnasei bad. What does michnasei bad teach me? Lechidetanya. How do you know when getting dressed, nothing should come before the michnasayim, or not getting dressed, or get something in place, underwear or something? Shenemar michnasei bad yilbash al b'sarai. In other words, so says Rabbi Yochanan, the reason it says 2 is not to preclude that only 2. There's really 4. And once it's 4, what's the halacha? It's an avoida. Once it's an avoida, Rabbi Eliezer is going to be moided that a Balmum can't perform Trumas Hadeshin. So why does it say those 2? For the chiddush that midai bad, the shirt has to fit well, and the chesayim that there should be nothing in between the michnasei bad and besarai. That's the chiddush. But einachinami, you need the hat, and einachinami, you need the belt. Reish Lakish says, guess what? I don't need you to tell me that. Midai kimidasai, maybe after Rachmana b'lashin midai bad. Since it uses a funny lashon, I hear that as well. So therefore, it's not a chiddush. Shlayei davar koydel mechasayim me'al b'sari nafka. He learns it al b'sari. So therefore, since you just read the words and you can learn that out, it's not a chiddush. Memela, it's only 2 begadim. Memela, it's not an avoida. And therefore, Rabbi Eliezer, who says it's going on Balmum, would be able to perform not only a tzos hadeshin but also Trumas Hadeshin.
Shkaya, thank you.